Hello and welcome. I'm Reshma Shah, a pediatrician, an award-winning author, a mom, and a home cook. And today I'm going to be sharing one of my, what I like to call Indian-ish recipes. It's inspired by many of the flavors that I grew up with, but with a slight twist to accommodate our busy schedules and modifications to make it entirely plant-based. I'm going to be sharing my recipe for Tofu Tikka Masala. This recipe is a variation for dishes like chicken tikka masala or paneer tikka masala that you might have enjoyed at Indian restaurants. I know that there are many jarred versions of tikka masala sauce that you can find at the grocery store, and they can be incredibly handy in a pinch. But my homemade version is simple enough to make and I think tastes so much better than any jarred version you can find on the shelf. We're going to use super firm tofu in place of the chicken or the paneer, and we're going to use a plant-based milk in place of the heavy cream that's often used with this recipe. Today, I'm making enough to serve 2 to 3 people, but you could add an extra block of tofu if you wanted to serve a larger crowd or if you wanted leftovers. Often, for a recipe like this, the chicken or paneer is marinated in yogurt and spices for several hours. I'm simplifying this process by making a quick marinade without the yogurt and then allowing my tofu to bake while I make the sauce. To prepare the tofu, take 1 block of super firm tofu. You could also use firm tofu and press it for 20 to 30 minutes to remove some of the excess water. Now this is where the Indian-ish part comes in. Instead of the typical yogurt marinade, I'm just going to use some spices and a little lemon juice. Tear the tofu into bite-sized pieces. Tearing the tofu instead of cutting it into cubes gives the tofu more rugged edges, which allows the sauce to cling to it a bit better. Drizzle about a teaspoon of olive oil and add half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, half a teaspoon of garam masala, a quarter teaspoon of ground turmeric, and a quarter teaspoon of red chili powder. Squeeze in about a tablespoon of lemon juice. Toss to combine and allow the tofu to sit and marinate for about 30 minutes. Bake the tofu in a 400-degree Fahrenheit oven on a parchment-lined baking sheet for about 20 to 30 minutes until golden brown. While the tofu is baking, we'll make the sauce. Begin by preparing your aromatics and vegetables. Finely dice 1 medium or half a large onion. Mince 3 cloves of garlic and about 1 inch of ginger. Finely dice about a pound of fresh tomatoes. I've seen many recipes use canned tomatoes, but I think fresh tomatoes, even when they're not in season, work better. I loved canned tomatoes for a variety of recipes, but I don't use them in this particular recipe. If your tomatoes aren't very sweet, you could add a pinch of sugar with the spices to bring out some of the natural sweetness in the tomatoes. Next, I like to portion out my spices and the rest of the ingredients ahead of time because the sauce comes together very quickly. In a small bowl, add a teaspoon of combined ground cumin and coriander mixture. You could also just use a teaspoon of ground cumin if you don't have the combination. A half to 1 teaspoon of ground red chili, depending on the level of spice desired, half a teaspoon of ground turmeric, 1 teaspoon of garam masala, and a teaspoon of kosher salt. I also have 3 whole cloves, 1 cinnamon stick, and a tablespoon of tomato paste, as well as 1 tablespoon of fenugreek or kasur methi leaves and chopped fresh cilantro to finish the dish. Begin by warming a tablespoon of olive oil in a skillet. Add the whole cloves and cinnamon stick. Cook for just about a minute until fragrant. Next, add the onions and saute until just beginning to brown. Once the onions are golden, add the garlic and ginger and saute for an additional minute, being careful not to let the garlic and ginger burn. Add the tomatoes and saute until they are cooked down a bit, just about 5 minutes or so. Mix in the tomato paste. Next, add the spices, including the salt, and cook until fragrant and incorporate it into the mixture. If the mixture is sticking or beginning to burn, add a bit of water to deglaze it. The next step is optional, but I highly recommend it so that you get a smooth, creamy sauce. Carefully fish out the cloves and cinnamon. Allow the mixture to cool and transfer to a food processor or blender. Puree the mixture until smooth. Return the mixture to your sauté pan. Add about a cup of water to your food processor or blender and swirl it around to capture the bits of sauce that are clinging to the sides. Add this additional water into the sauté pan. This is a little trick my mother taught me to make sure you don't waste 1 bit of the flavorful sauce. Bring the sauce to a simmer and stir in half a cup of plant-based milk. Coconut milk works quite well, but you could also use soy or oat milk. I think that almond milk tends to be a bit thin and won't give it as rich and creamy a texture. My local grocery store has these small cans of coconut milk, which are just the right amount. I don't want the flavor of the coconut milk to be too overpowering, so half a cup will do the trick. Simmer for about 5 to 10 minutes. Gently crush the fenugreek leaves to release their flavor and add them to the sauce. Mix in the baked tofu. Stir to combine and cook over medium-low heat for about 10 to 15 minutes to allow the flavors to meld. Season with additional salt and pepper to taste. Garnish with chopped fresh cilantro. You can serve this over steaming hot basmati rice as well as a vegetable side dish. My easy aloo gobi would be the perfect accompaniment. I hope you enjoyed my version of Tofu Tikka Masala. It's simple enough to prepare for an easy weeknight dinner, and I think it's fancy enough to serve to guests. If you'd like to see more plant-based recipes as well as cooking and nutrition tips, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.